Let's talk about Scott Ritter. And I forget the other guy's name, McGregor. McGregor was a colonel, and also was or is still within the is has a political position. Uh, I think he did have a political position. I think he was either a congressman or U.S. congressman. Anyways, both of them, along with another. Uh, Actually, no, it's not McGregor. It's another one. But McGregor was a military guy. I believe he held the rank of colonel. It could have been a lieutenant colonel. And then there's Scott Ritter, who was a major in the U.S. Marines. He was also part of the U.S. military intelligence, and he was invited to become a UN weapons inspector. Now, McGregor has spoken out. This other colonel, who was also, I believe, a representative in the congressional level in the United States. Richard, I forget the guy's last name, but they both put out videos. McGregor has done the thing of going around and talking on media platforms such as RT, also on to independent media. Um, Scott Ritter has done those rounds as well. But what is in common is something I've been saying for quite a long time, is that people that hold the power and the influence, the money and finances and all that other stuff, basically have control, and work against the publics that they represent, that supposedly represent, which I view as them as traitors and high criminals. And all three of them have basically insinuated basically what I bluntly have said. Scott calls them the stupidest people on the planet, and he's not wrong. He should be going further because they're traitorous criminals. They betray their public. They go around sending our men and women to cause chaos, destruction, create lies, completely fabricate stories and agendas and narratives, which belies reality. And NATO is one of those organizations. They might as well be a mafia, a cult, they're completely outside of reality. They try to frame their own reality, and they get a lot of people involved. Most of them don't do what they do because they know what's going on. They do what they do, and some of them know what's going on and do it because they believe in that artificial framework. So it's important. It's important that people start to really open their eyes, open up their minds, and frame it from your own experience. And the experience tells you that costs are out of control. That the standards that the moderate standards that you should be having are being massively degraded, and it's personally harming you. And people have to start thinking in terms of, in the Constitution, it says to defend the United States from foreign and domestic. But the foreign really isn't foreign enemies isn't really a reality. It's the domestic enemy. When the domestic enemy are our political and those in positions that have been appointed to positions in government. They are our corporations, our wealthy, and the cabal of so-called professionals who because of self-serving, wildly self-serving agendas of their own, to profit no matter the cost, are the enemies. That includes the media, which is owned by the corporations. That includes these so-called law firms and these so-called lobbyist law firms and these so-called think tanks and so on and so forth. You got the Rand Corporation. You got the New American something. You got the Atlantic Council. You got the NED, which is basically funded by our taxes. You got USAID, which is funded by our taxes. You got the this is across the West. They're spending hundreds of millions to billions to create this fabrication all over the place, telling you that Nazis don't control Ukraine, that criminal felony corruption is rampant because of decades of feeding these little tyrannical monsters who control the monetary and finances and the political to serve their own ends in Ukraine. And this happens all over the place. Turkey does the same thing because Turkey's part of NATO. That's why Saudi Arabia is the way it is. That's why the United Arab Emirates. That's why Qatar and Bahrain and well, actually, I think Bahrain is because it's a capital of one of those. But that's why Brazil is the way it is. Why a clear criminal who has a horrible self-serving agenda can be the president of Brazil. That's why Colombia has a little narco trafficker, either had or still has a little narco trafficker, a high criminal. That's why you see it all over South America, all over Central America. That's why you see it all over the Middle East, all over Africa. You see it everywhere. Everywhere the U.S. and West and NATO dip their poisonous little fingers into it, because you got criminals who are driving the agenda. That's why you have massacres all over the planet, because the most stupid people, the most egotistical, prideful, most insane, evil doctrine of people who are, you can call them sociopaths, you can call them psychopaths. Doesn't matter. It's interchangeable. And that's why our domestic situation keeps getting worse and worse and worse. That's why you have, there's no real difference between Fox and the rest. It's all virtual signaling, whether you serve the so-called left, the so-called right, the so-called center, the so-called conservatives, or the so-called liberals. Or even if you want to put them terms socialists, they've bled all this insanity and fused all this insanity everywhere. That's why I keep saying Americans are insane. we have to break away from this insanity. I mean, they already have a war, and you call it proxy or whatever, but it's a war, and it's a war that they're using the Ukrainians as fodder. They're sending the weapons, so they're literally at war with Russia, and they're doing the same thing with China. Now, Russia being at war with a nuclear power like Russia is bad enough. And it is utterly insane. But to start a war with the most populous country, the most populated country on the planet, who's done an unbelievable leap in technology, in finances, in monetary, in across the board, military. Space sciences, telecommunication, you name it. They're developing new nuclear power, which is more based on fusion. Nuclear power generation. I mean, it's like they're ahead in nanotechnology. They're ahead in so many fields. Something called STEM, it's science, technology, and math. It's like this, this is not just me saying so. It is you can look it up yourself. Of course, you can't trust Google and others to bring it up because they'll bury it. We all know that Google buries it. And that you have to go through page after page. So if you use other than Google, right, you have an easier time finding it. So that doesn't mean that you won't get results on Google. You will, but the things that they want to bury and make it difficult they're going to do it. They do it. This is why it's a problem to have the people who have the money and the backing, because they serve the agenda, because they're serving their own self-interest. That's why it's a problem to have a Facebook that's controlled by a so-called private corporation, or Google, which owns YouTube and so on and so forth, and Facebook owns Instagram, and they also basically grab the Western market for TikTok, and but even if you take into context of TikToks and the Chinese, it's not a good idea even for the Chinese to have this sort of thing. Something I found, I support what the Chinese have achieved. There's a difference between achievement that serves the greater public interest, and then there is being pro-China. And I'm not pro-China. I'm pro what they've done, the accomplishments they've done. But I certainly don't approve of weapons sales to Saudi Arabia from China, so that they can do exactly what the United States and NATO is doing to Yemen. Causing. I don't see a difference. There's China allowing this massive so-called real estate corporation in China to commoditize and speculate. And what speculation means is we could possibly make absurd amount of money if we do this and this and this and this. It's not going to serve the public, but fuck that. Its profits is what. That's another thing I don't agree with, and I don't think China should allow it. And the worst part is that the Chinese have in their constitution the ability to change their politicians and even change their policies through a referendum. So the Chinese public should go after that. They go after the smaller stuff, and some other more impactful things for their. But they should be doing more than that, because that's what communism, that's what socialism is about. So people are right that there is that China does have a bit of a capitalist problem, but it's but they call it market capitalism, but what it is industrial capitalism, because industrial capitalism has many of the things that they talk about in communism and socialism. But the thing is the only thing is that there should be private industry, but the private industry should be serving the public, and the government is supposed to serve the public and the private industry. It's semantics. It's completely not a semantics. So there are things. Russia has a lot of the same things. Does a lot of the same things, but there is a vast difference between what China and Russia does. They're not the ones going around being the assholes, being the bullies, being the antagonists, being the ones using mafia tactics or feudal lord mentality of, oh, we hold the power, might makes right, so therefore do what we fucking tell you to do and shut the fuck up. That's basically what the U.S. and West and NATO are. And so Japan has that same, Japan's self-appointed ruling class, because they all of them that have that follow this agenda, this ideology, they all rig it so that the ones that already have the money, they have the influence, have the backing, get in. You pick your poison of what high criminals you want. And that's not just in Japan. It's in South Korea. It's in Brazil. It's everywhere that has this ideology. And that's the danger. It's a domestic issue. Your biggest criminals, the ones that are ruining everything, are generally your own domestic traders, and that's the way it works. That's why you always hear that Venezuela, which is trying to follow its own version of a socialist societal change, is a threat. That's why Cuba, for the same reason. That's why Nicaragua. That's why Eritrea. That's why so many others. And then even countries like Iran, which is more of a blend of a theocratic and secular, but industrial capitalist. But it's more. It's following more along the lines of the doctrine of industrial capitalism. Of there should be a cooperation between the private and the public, so that both serve. But but there's that agenda of self-serving, but it's not as bad. They haven't gone completely insane and power hungry. They're not megalomaniacal. And so like Iran has more Iran has more Westerners than they have with like Venezuela or Cuba or Nicaragua or Eritrea. And then there's Ethiopia, which is much like Iran. But there's a difference, but it's not a huge difference. But you gotta be the asshole. You gotta be the ones always pushing the button. Pushing buttons and expecting to everybody to basically bow down. That whole term of kowtowing. Kowtowing is something that China, basically, and the East Asians came up with. Basically bending down all the way to the ground, and that's completely not a nonsense. And it's no matter where you live, people need to self-correct themselves, and understand the enemy is not others who are your fellow citizens. It is those who do not see themselves as citizens. They see themselves as the rulers, the dictators, the authorities, and what they authorize is what serves them, not you. That is a criminal ideology. I always talk about the things like, don't, it's natural law says that you shouldn't go after somebody because of the way the shape of their eyes, their skin tone, or the ethnicity from what country you're from, or even you shouldn't go surround somebody's house because because you want their house or their lands or their children or their women or their boys or what. And we all can come to consensus that sort of shit is illegal. It's criminal, and that's the ideology, and that's what ultimately what Scott Ritter is talking about. McGregor, he still has some of that ideology. He's just more. He seems to be more, at least, rational, and he hasn't gone off the deep end. But he still does that narrative BS. Russia, Russia's aggressive, but they're not as aggressive like we are. China is horrible. They're this authoritarian dictatorship, but they're not going around bombing the hell out of everywhere and just killing people everywhere and saying, you have to do it our way, and we if we feel like we can give you a little bit of scraps, so be it. But but what we dictate is what matters. It's like, so I can, at least McGregor has a bit of sensibility, but McGregor knows the truth. And the thing is the fact that he knows the truth because he talks about how much of a bully, how much of a bunch of criminal assholes and nonsense spewing and active and doing actions that are just. He says it, but it's like, and he talks about all the coups, all the military invasions, all the bribery and everything else, and yet, he's talking about this, and then he's trying to also keep up the propaganda. So there can't be two truths. There can't be two truths. I mean, if McGregor went on and said, like I did, about commoditizing their real estate or selling weapons to Saudi Arabia to be used against the Yemenis, who are being strangled, slaughtered, and everything else. Russia going along at the UN and saying the Houthis are Ansar Allah. I think that's the other. I think that's actually the real term for the group. The ones that they themselves call it, but the West calls them the Houthis. They're the ones actually fighting. They're the actual legitimate rebels that are fighting against aggression from within and outside, from the traitorous members of their own society and the ones that are backing them from outside. But Russia went along with the West to call them terrorists. It's like that whole thing is hey, we can do the violence on you, but you can't. You're not allowed to fight back. You have no legitimacy. It's the same thing with the Palestinians. Palestinians have their own band of traitors. And the Palestinians are fighting back. Although they could be more consistent, because Hamas isn't this pure group, because they have their own little ones that want they'll do it for self-serving reasons, and not for the Palestinians as a whole. And Israel has done more in favor for Hamas with their open fascistic tyrannical measures. I mean, Israel is literally copying and pasting the shit that was done to the Jews throughout history, and the Nazis did to them. That blows my mind. I was like, how the fuck do you come around to do that? Why can you? How can you not see it? But that's, and it's like a lot of the so-called Israeli leadership is from those from America, from Europe, and elsewhere. So it's like, this is why people need to be more calm, because if these insane assholes don't start a nuclear Armageddon, which will kill us, the climate catastrophe, the climate breakdown, is going to do it for us, because we're not addressing it. We're not trying to mitigate it. We're polluting and poisoning our very environment in such an alarming rate that that it's not going to be very long. It's going to be within a lifetime. Like I'm over 50 years old, but it's going to be, before I die, things are going to be so bad that you won't be able to find foods that are not contaminated, even if you forage for it. Animals will be the animal population, which is already dying and being extinguished by the billions. I can just go on and on and on. We do it, and we consume it. And consumerism is part of the problem. And why? Because we keep giving our labor, our money, our ideas and intellect to these criminals who just don't give a fuck. They serve themselves. They do not consider themselves an American. They do not consider themselves Turkish. They do not consider themselves Chinese. They do not consider themselves Russians. They do not consider themselves Germans. They consider themselves to be outside. They view the world as something to mold to fit their agenda. so that they can have the leisure time and the liberty to do whatever the fuck they want, no matter how insane, no matter how horrible it is. And these are the small little cabals who control things. It doesn't matter if you live in Africa, South America, Central America, Mexico, United States, Canada. It doesn't matter where you live. The highest form of criminals are the ones who control things. The ones who believe that they have a manifest destiny to be the masters of all. Those are the ones that we should be fighting. Those are the ones that we should be extinguishing off the face of the planet. We should be making it so that they understand that what they do is not unacceptable. We could not tolerate it because it harms us all collectively, all life on the planet. And they should know. They should fear us, the public. That's internationally. They should know that we as a collective are the masters. Not the other way around. You know, I keep putting this point out. It's like, what is the difference between being a feudal lord and aristocracy and king and what's happening now? What's been happening since the so-called end of feudalism? What it is all superficial semantics. And it happens because we have bought into it, because we have allowed it, because we are the ones contributing to their control. When are we going to stand up? When are we going to take control and serve all of us collectively, so that the world of life won't end because of climate change and environmental poisoning and degradation? When are we going to find real aspirations and dreams? When are we going to actually serve and strive for peace? Because we have never done that. You know, we can talk about protests and calling for peace, no more wars, but being part of the system, the ones actually allowing to be driven, not drive, but driven. Well, guess what? You're not serving for peace. You're not serving for solidarity. You're not serving for community. You're not serving for commonwealth. You're serving the agenda of a few and those who want to be like them. That's not a pathway to peace. That's a pathway to self-destruction. Let's change that. Let's become the drivers, the engines, and the backbones. None of us are individuals. Individually, we can't do anything. Because you may have the greatest idea, you may have the greatest policies, you may have the greatest philosophical thought, but the thing is if you don't have others who are willing to be part of it, you can't accomplish it. This is why I say you can't put legs and arms on a dollar bill and tell it to do something. It just doesn't work that way. Can't tell it to think up something, or build the pyramids or the Great Wall or anything, any of the seven wonders, or create the technology that. It just doesn't happen. It is us. It is our physical labor. It is our mental labor. It is our emotional labor. It is our philosophical. It is, we do it. And to fear socialism and everything else, and everything's a boogeyman, because instead of socialism and that actually is about a commonwealth, and you fear it because then you guess what? It's been happening already. They have already socialized our labor, our intellect, our emotional aspect to serve their ends. They're the ones socializing the benefits and giving and making you pay the cost, making us pay the cost. Armies require a lot of people, and if you're just serving the interests of a few, that's still socialized profits for the few at the cost of the whole. It's insane. That's why I call it insanity. There are degrees of insanity, but the United States and the West and NATO are the most insane. We have to correct that.